Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Unit 3 of the course. Just to give you a little bit of a status update on how things are going, we started off with 24 students, and at this point we have 15. We've lost a lot of students along the way because of attendance, not getting on every day, and living up to the responsibilities that you have or that they had as a summer school student. So just to reiterate, you're supposed to be going on every day. If you can't make it for a day because you've got work or some other thing, you're supposed to get in touch with me to let me know. And some of you have been doing that, and that's fine. As long as you're willing to make up for the time that you missed, we can certainly be flexible. But you are supposed to be going on for about 4.5 hours every day. Remember that every day in this course represents 3 regular school days. So we have to get to 110 hours worth of instructional time in order to earn a credit. And in order to do that in the course of a month, you have to work for about 4.5 hours every day. So the problem or the reason why students have ended up dropping the course or have been exited from the course is because they haven't been living up to their responsibilities. So we've got about half the course left, a little bit less than half. We're in Unit 3 now. We have one more unit after this, and then of course the exam. Make sure that if you're behind that you start doing something about it. Make sure that you don't end up putting yourself in a position where you stick with the course but don't actually complete it and don't end up earning a credit, because that would be quite a waste. All right? So with that out of the way, I want to talk about the writing styles that you're going to be using this week or that you have been using, and also to talk about True Colors to make sure that everybody understands what True Colors is and how it works and can use it for their assignments. So just very quickly about the types of writing that you've been doing. Email, the first lesson had to do with business style of writing. Back when I was in high school, we would have been looking at the business letter, but with the internet basically becoming popular in around 1995, everything changed after that, and things have gone to email at this point. Email is by far the most important type of business writing you're going to do. You're going to be sending email at college. Your professors, who are generally of my generation, are going to require it. They're going to be getting in contact with you by email and be, expecting you to reciprocate. And of course, in the workplace, your workplace, which will be managed by, again, people of my generation or a generation above me, they're going to be email style people. And the important thing to remember, email is not Messenger. All right, it's not writing on somebody's Facebook wall. It's not sending a Snapchat. Email is supposed to be a letter, basically, and letters have got a certain format and a certain style, and it's important for you to learn how to use email correctly. Most people don't, and I could see that very quickly when I started getting emails from various students in the class, with the exception of a couple of students who either learned email in school or just figured it out on their own. Most people send messages, they don't send letters. So remember, it should have a salutation as a sign of respect, and it should have a formal closing and a signature, basically you typing your name at the bottom, as a sign of professionalism. So those things are important. They send a really positive message for you if you can send an effective email. Like a former student of mine told me that at the time when he was learning this in my grade 11 class, he didn't think it was that important, but already he said that email is like probably the most important skill that he's learned in school, because he uses it all the time for his job, several jobs that he's got, actually, one of them with the school board too. So email style, pay attention to it, make sure that you write your emails correctly and professionally looking, and in the right tone too. Don't be informal with somebody that you should be formal. Today's lesson, which just been posted, has got a couple of graphic style forms of writing. The lesson itself kind of focused on like a variety of graphics, including things like pie charts and diagrams and things. But I wanted to focus on two that I think are going to be really useful for you with regards to your schooling and writing reports in particular. So good tables and good bullet lists. So when it comes to formatting a table, presentation is everything. In the world of work, the way your writing looks is often as important as what it actually says, because you know, the aesthetics of the document, they show professionalism, and professionalism reflects well upon you. So I always like to use the analogy of like you know, a really well formatted but poor resume versus an excellent resume that looks really rough. When a boss is going through a stack of 50 resumes and they're going to try to narrow it down to maybe 10 that they'll actually read because they don't have much time, all right? If your boss is going through this stack, they're probably going to toss out that really great yet shoddy looking resume just because it didn't look good. And that really terrible resume might make it into the top 10 because it looked good. All right. So when it comes to tables, you want to make sure that it looks nice and neat. That's going to mean a few things. Number one, learn how to use some table formatting features, like some subtle color. Don't use bright, obnoxious colors, because you know they're just obnoxious. You know, a bright yellow or a fluorescent green, like those sorts of things, those don't look good. Don't use bright text with a bright background. Don't use dark text with a dark background. You should be able to clearly see the information on a table, but feel free to use a little bit of subtle color. Use the lighter shades of color, you know, to make a header row look nicer. That's like the top row that's got your labels in it, or like the sidebar with your side labels. Make that look a little bit nicer if you want to. If not, like, you can use shading too. Use different shades of like grays and blacks in order to make things stand out a little bit better. So those sort of like formatting features, like color and centering certain things. Not everything in a table should be centered, but some things probably should be. Think about using bold text when it's, you know, when it makes sense. Not everything should be bold, but some things probably should be. But it definitely should look like you put effort into this table. It should look professional. It should also not have a lot of blank space. And this is where a lot of people run into problems making tables. They put the information in the table, but it takes up too much space. So with today's assignment, I intentionally like threw a curveball at you by asking 5 of this, but then 10 of this. And what that's going to do is it's going to force you to come up with some way to fix the formatting so that you don't end up with a whole bunch of blank space. All right? Because that just, it's not efficient, basically. If you put it in terms of a workplace, if you're going to be writing a report and then photocopying, you know, 20 copies of it, for different people in the office that you have to give it to, if that report is unnecessarily long, it's just a waste of paper, and that's going to reflect poorly on you as being, you know, poorly organized. If the boss notices, well, this person's not being very efficient with the resources, if I can't trust them to write a report, how am I going to trust them with, you know, some piece of equipment that's worth, you know, $25,000 or $250,000 or $2.5 million? That sort of thing, right? It's all about presenting yourself as being, you know, effective. So when it comes to tables, make sure they're formatted well, and that's going to be a matter of you know, using the table options and the properties and resizing cells, like columns and rows, to make it look as nice as it can. With regards to bullet lists are very easy as long as you know how they work. Basically, you start a bullet list with a fragment of a sentence. Usually that fragment will involve the word follows, like, you know, the following elements are important for a list, colon. Or bullet lists have the following elements, colon. That sort of like introductory fragment tells me what the list is going to be about. And then the list always starts with a colon. And then you've got your bullets, and each bullet ends with a semicolon, except for the very last one, which ends with a period. And kind of like the idea is that the whole thing is basically one big sentence. Every bullet on your list should only be one sentence long. It shouldn't be multiple sentences. If your bullet is too long, shorten it down, because the whole idea with a bullet list is you take a lot of information and you package it in a nice, simple, efficient way. All right, so that's my spiel with bullet lists. Finally, getting into true colors. So true colors is a personality theory, and it relates to career choice. When I used to teach careers pretty much full time at my school, and I used true colors with the students. And basically what you did is you figured out what your color type is, and then what job would work for you. Or figure out the opposite. What are you definitely not, and then avoid that type of job. So if you're like a type blue person, you don't want to end up in a job where, you know, you might be like taking from people, because you're going to feel guilty pretty much. Like business is not really the realm for type blues, and politics is not really the realm for type blues, because those are kind of cutthroat places, and the type blue just they're too kind and caring to be effective in most jobs in those fields. So the way that the personality testing would work, and if you want to Google, you can't find a good personality test anymore for free, but you can find loose ones. The way that I always taught it to my students is, your personality is made up of a combination of two and a lack of one. So for me personally, I'm a type blue-green personality. Those blue and green definitely describe the type of person I am. I'm definitely not a type orange, though. Spontaneity is not really my, something that describes me. I'm more the type of person who wants to think things through, as opposed to like acting first and thinking later. All right. So when you want to figure out who you are, that's what I want you to keep in mind. Nobody is really like just one. Like nobody's really just like a type green. Like I'm sure there are some people who are just greens or just golds, but most people are a combination of a couple of things, and then like an absence of one. And then whatever that third color is, it's like neither here nor there. It doesn't really factor. It's not a strength or a weakness. And then the idea would be that you try to figure out what job would suit your personality. So for me, I find that teaching suits my personality quite well, because it allows me to be like creative and innovative as a teacher. I like to do new things. I like to come up with my own activities and my own assignments. I like to do things that are a bit outside the box. To give you an example, when I used to be a history teacher, quite often we would do like battle reenactments. We reenacted the Battle of Vimy Ridge at the first school I taught at, using water balloons and super soakers. It was like an amazing activity that nobody else told me that like the other history teachers would never ever try to do, because it just was too way out there. But that's what I like about teaching, is it gives me like the opportunity to do that, but it also is a type of job where I make a difference in people's lives. At least I hope I do, and I can like do something that I think is good for the world. That's one of the reasons why I got into teaching, is I didn't want to have a job where I just take from people. I wanted to have a job where I give and I do something that's that makes a difference. So figure out what your own personality is, and then figure out what you want to do with your life, and hopefully ideally those things have to gel, because as you'll read in today's assignment, you don't want to end up being 40 years old and realize that you've gotten into the wrong line of work because you hate waking up in the morning. Okay? So that's basically what True Colors is all about. And I mean, there's readings on it and there's videos on it, and you'll figure it out as you go. It's very simple though. Don't think that it's complicated, because it's really not. It's all a matter of like having the right personality for the job, and all that True Colors does is it tries to like verbalize, what do these different personalities actually look like. So there you have it. Today's activity involves making some graphics and sending more email. And speaking of email, remember, if you have any questions or need any help, please feel free to ask. That's what I'm here for. And remember, I'm a type blue, so I enjoy helping.